when we were kids, we used to go to the cinema of Saturday morning, and we saw all these films, Charlie Chaplin and all that, and one of the films we see was Freans' Factory, because that took my imagination. And then when I left school about 18 months after, I went straight to Peaks for the job. And there's one job there called Trimmers. They used to take all the ashes away. It was a lousy job. Whoever had that. Yeah, Bermondsey smelt in those days. You had the leather tanneries, you had the glue factory, you had the beer, Freans, the biscuits. Oh yes, you got a nice lot of smells.
This was very industrial, Bermondsey was. You had Shuttleworths and you had so many factories. You had Fevers and, you know, like Tin People.
Yeah, there used to be a lot of other factories around here. I mean, you name any food, it was made around here. I mean, there was a chocolate firm on the corner of Stanley Road.
I think this is about the last of the factories to go.
This is the last remaining factory. It's history, this factory. Everybody knows Freans. Bermondsey was where it began, and that's where people know it from.
The Bermondsey factory is best known for the manufacture of sweet biscuits, savoury biscuits and Christmas puddings.
Freans biscuits were well known, weren't they? You know, everybody bought Freans biscuits.
The manufacture of sweet biscuits starts with the arrival of flour.
Something in excess of 100 tonnes of flour and 100 tonnes of sugar a week. Fats probably be 40 to 50 tonnes a week.
We have quite a large electronic control panel controlling all the bulk handling, the solids, the fats and that sort of thing.
It automatically feeds the sugar, the flour, automatically weighs it, measures out the liquids, the fats and the syrup, the water, hot water, cold water. So, you know, really went to town on this panel that they brought in. Yes, I should think so, because, I mean, there was a lot of walking about. I mean, and the chaps used to come along with sacks of flour, running backwards and forwards, so there was a lot of hard work, and people really had to work hard in those days to earn their money.
The ingredients basically haven't changed at all, apart from the fact that we've moved more in.
The flour used to come in 10-stone bags, and that's why we call the mixers now by the sack, because one sack is £140 of flour. We used to have dozens of different flours, or different grades for different type of biscuits. Yeah. Now we have a biscuit, just a one flour. We call it biscuit flour, or we call it 1C, but it's just the same.
And they used to get the chaps running along with hefty great 200 weight bags of flour and tipping them in the mixer, and then a bucket of water going, and then they just have a feel to see if it was right.
It used to be in the floor. They were very, very low, about 2 foot off the floor, and we used to tip everything down into the mixer.
Everything used to go by hand. Flour by hand, sugar by hand, fat by hand, and water.
Because that was where experience count. I mean, these days they press a button and they hope that everything comes down right.
You couldn't get a job in the mixer unless you started 6 o'clock in the morning till 6 at night. We used to work a 12-hour day, plus Saturdays cleaning mainly, or sometimes production. We used to do nothing but think about 65-hour week.
All the man on the mixer is supposed to do is to push one button and say, I am ready to receive my load. And then he gets the whole recipe, which is given him by the control panel.
Mostly everything's press button. So all you do is to put all the ingredients, press the button, and you mix for 2 or 3 minutes, slow, 2 minutes fast. You open up the mixer, and the dough is tested, ready to drop.
But they want a bit of oatmeal in which has to be loaded in by hand, a bit of special sugar which has to be loaded in by hand, until we've almost destroyed, in some biscuits, we've destroyed the mechanical handling altogether, the automatic.
Let's say number one, he does 3 mixers an hour, and each mixer makes 1/3 of a tonne. So you're making a tonne an hour, and you do it.
Modern technology, otherwise you'll get left behind. And of course another thing is that as modern technology is introduced, you're going to reduce the number of people.
We've looked back in our records and we think there was something around 3,500 people employed at Bermondsey at that time. Many things were done by hand, and labour was cheap.
And we used to have what they call dough breaks, which was seen in the 1906 film, where they would roll the dough backwards and forwards, cut it to a slab, and then bring it round on a machine on a trolley, and then put it onto the machine, feed it that way.
Till we got to the bakehouse, and there was a hell of a noise all overhead belts and trucks everywhere. They had a steam engine down in the boiler house, and before I went there, he used to drive all the lot. They had to ring a bell right the way through the bakehouse to let them know it was starting up.
There was a lot of family ties. I mean, my father worked here before me. He started around about 1912. So he worked here 50 years, and because I had several aunts and uncles that worked here, and then eventually I got a job for my wife here.
In the film, we see the biscuits actually being cut out individually by a cutter, and other ladies putting them onto trays.
It must be terrible. It must be very, very hard, I wouldn't like.
I came to Pete Freans because my sister worked here, and my mother was very poor at the time. She had quite a few children, and so I had to give up needlework, the idea of going to needlework, and go to Pete Freans because I was earning more money, which was 12 and threepence when I started here. And that was a full-week work, including Saturday morning.
Saturday morning was part of your job, 5.5-day week. It was hard times and longer hours, and when I came here it was 48 hours a week. Now they work 37.5.
It's not like that now, and things much easier now. Mark you, when I came here in 56, it was near enough. Most of those machines that I seen that film were still here. Yeah, true. And so in those days, most of the work was carrying on. There wasn't so much people here like what was in that film, but there was quite a lot.
It's interesting to note that many of those people were young people below the age of 18. This was quite simply an economical decision, because when young people reached 18, they were entitled to an adult rate of pay, and the firm in those days felt that they were better to employ young people at cheaper rates of pay than employing adults at full rates of pay.
And the biscuits, when they came off a machine, they were stamped out with the reciprocating cutters, and they were timed so that they came down the web, and then there was a gap after each tray, so that then they were lifted off from the tray, and then they were placed in the oven by one or two youngsters, perhaps at the beginning of the oven. And they went through and came out the other end, and they were lifted off and put into racks until they were...
The job they gave us, we was given a pair of felt holders because the wires were hot, and all we had to do was to pick the wires up from the machine as they come down, foot loaded with biscuits, take them over to the oven, let a chap put them in the oven, then we had to go back for another one. It was a treadmill all day long, backwards and forwards, and we done a 10-hour day then.
Things have changed dramatically. Technology has taken all the jobs away from the people. When I come here first, there was over 3,000 people working here. I think there's just over 1,000 now, probably under 1,000 now. So technology has taken away a lot of jobs. Things have changed dramatically.
So I work on number 3, down the bakery, putting the sugar in through onto the biscuits, flour on the oven band, and checking the webs. And I check number 4, which is the other machine, on the switches. That's about all.
It's quite easier, much easier now than it was in the old days, yes, because in the old days everything had to be done by hand. Today you have machinery to do everything, and it makes it quite easy.
Well, we've got to make sure the machine is running properly and keep the weight and gauge right, because these biscuits got to be on packet weight, you see. So they've got to be in them the right weight when they get back up in the packing section.
Goes straight through the cutting machine. It comes down from the cutting machine, either a rotary cutter or a reciprocating cutter, then down the panning web.
Now, the picking comprises of setting up your machine in the morning, seeing that you have the right cuts, the right speed in the oven, and you have your right weight going in. You have a certain weight going in, and you have a certain weight coming out of the oven.
We used to mix the Christmas puddings on the Briley pan, which was more like a jam boiler, whereas now we've got a fairly automatic mixing plant. The most significant thing in the Southside factory is that all of the girls are piecework. They work on a piecework basis, whereas the rest of the factory...
They're ordinary, they're not a piecework on the biscuits, whereas puddings has always been a piecework job. And piecework is much better because it gives you something to want to work, you know.
We had lots of piecework, which has made a great deal of difference because there's more money at the end of it.
It would be fair to say that we were relatively low in the pay scales. Things have improved in that respect, and therefore we are paying salary rates that are better.
The ovens we use today throughout the plant are modern ovens, and they are 48 inches wide and approximately 200 feet long.
Well, obviously the ovens have changed a lot. They used to be, we had the original ovens over in Southside, and they were just a short oven, 60, 70 foot long, whereas now the ovens...
Ways that in the old film where they're carrying trays across, it seems a bit weird that they didn't put a conveyor in between
Life
to
in the
us
factory
now.
in those days, it was more manual work, not so much mechanisation, and, you know, things people worked harder. Don't let people say the good old times. They were good old times, but they were hard work.
This, what we describe as auto plants, was something that was developed at Peak Freans, and it is something we're particularly proud of.
Obviously technology has improved and possibly it's a lot safer these days, but I think there might have been a camaraderie there greater than today.
It was in those days, it was father following son, but those things have altered now, you know.
But I think in the olden days there was more of a family atmosphere to what you have now.
Today, as the factory begins to close down and we move to new premises, the biscuits will come out of the ovens, direct into creamers and then direct into packing machines. This means that today we use 55 girls to make bourbon, whereas the new plant, which will give the same output, will use 12 girls. And that is the step forward that has been made in technology.
Oh, the only difference is I think I noticed was when we used to do the creaming of the biscuits, we used to have to do it by hand, by hoppers. Well, over it's automatic. They're just put up by automatic machines.
Now, the target on bourbon is supposed to be 13.2 tonne a day, but most days we exceed that by at least 2 tonne. On a very good day, we can produce 17 tonne of biscuits.
Oh, they spoilt the bourbon. It ain't like it used to be. Oh, the biscuits today, I can't help saying it, they're rubbish today, what they used to be. I think the autos has done a lot of it. They can only work with round, square, the machines. They can't take fancy shapes, they can't pack them.
We now put a cocoa powder in rather than chocolate. But other than that, the biscuit is very much the same as in its early days of introduction.
We used to do all the wrapping by hand.
Yes, the biscuits were all packed in the tray by the gents and left in these racks, and then we used to say, go and do shortcake. And you just take your tray and then put your papers all ready, and then you timed yourself. And that's it, the lady would check you out. It was all done by hand.
£9 tins.
£9 tins.
Square, £9 tins. We all stood along a sort of a bench, and the man at the end used to put a tray on, and then we used to pull the tray down, and then we used to sort, you know, get on with the biscuits. We had to be very quick, I tell you. But it wasn't a bad job.
You got used to piecework, you got used to bashing and tearing it. It was up to you if you wanted to earn money, and I did. I needed it very badly.
But then they brought in the automatic machines, which are much better. because you get old.
But it's so, I don't know, it's so slow now to what it used to be in them days.
The automation, you know, is wonderful, really, because, you know, I know you get lots of problems with machines because they're always breaking down.
And now you've got computer, and then you've got press buttons, so everything's up to standard. So I think we have come a long way, really.
There are jobs still here now that are sort of treadmill, but on the whole, people were more on a treadmill in those days than they are now, which is quite right. Progress should be like that.
This machine that we've got now, it's a computerised machine. Ever such an interesting machine, you know, quite like it.
We have to make sure that every packet goes out of the factory in good condition, that also the codes are all on and the weight is correct.
I don't think my job existed in all probability in those days. They didn't have packaging in the way that we know it now. I think most of the biscuits went into tins, into what we call 9-pound tins, and that was virtually the only packaging that was used.
I loved it. I wouldn't have stayed otherwise. I loved it. We had a lot of discipline, of course. In those days, you never said boo to a goose, really. You was afraid to, because we had a manageress and she was ever so, terrible she was. You were frightened if she spoke to you, you know, you was really frightened. Well, you were in those days, don't you think so? You were frightened in case you were going to get the sack or anything like that. So you had to behave yourself.
You knew who the governors were because they were always on site. These days, the majority of our governors are at Reading, and their governors then are in the USA.
Of course, most of the stuff now is packed into cardboard cartons. As we use the £0.5 and pound packed biscuits now.
Today, we have some of the finest packing machines in the world, which are made in Japan.
I mean, when I came here, it was peak Freans, and then we went in with Huntley and Palmer and Jacobs, and then it changed to Associated Biscuits, and then after that Nabisco's came in, and I mean everyone said, oh well, once you have a takeover. I mean it happened round there to Shuttleworths. They were taken over and they closed down a little while after. So no, I don't think any of us were surprised.
I mean, when Nabisco took over, they were the ones that were starting to make the place automated. So obviously, if it had carried on, we'd have seen big changes in the factory for the better, eventually. And then we all know what happened from them. They're shutting us down.
The unfortunate thing about the biscuit industry, it does seem to have spare capacity. The problem has been that the biscuit market has remained static or slightly declining for the last 20 years. The company has too much manufacturing capacity, and therefore one of the sites had to go. And I can understand some of the logic in the decision making at Bermondsey. As far as the people are concerned, it's very unfortunate, but I think that one has to accept these things happen and make the most of it. And to many people, it may be an opportunity of restarting a completely fresh career.
And when I came down, I thought, God, people would never believe it. Oh, I won't stay here, you know, I'll only stay a week or so. But that week's turned into 31 years now. It'll be 31 years next Sunday.
I still feel sad, same as everybody else, I think. It's the end of an era.
I used to work we used to have all our biscuits who were sent to export were put in tins, and the tins were put in wooden boxes. And we used to make our own wooden boxes, and that's where I started, the case paper department. We used to, our wood was coming in big deals, and we used to make our own planks and cut them to size, make packing cases for the tins to go in. We used to, all our biscuit trays were wood, which wouldn't be allowed today, but all wood, and we used to make them.
Somewhere in the region of 400 different kinds of biscuits. They would make a biscuit for less than an hour just to fill an order and then change to another product. Today, this is quite impossible with automated plant. Compared with the 400 plus products that were made in 1906, we're down to less than 30 today, which is a dramatic change.
Oh, it was in those days. We had so many varieties. Oh, it was gorgeous. I mean, all the chocolate biscuits and I can't tell you how many different varieties we did. It's unbelievable. They've all gone, you know. Biscuit thing, oh, gorgeous, really lovely. Yeah. Oh, the chocolate room here was a dream. But there were so many thousands. You must be known at what we did do. I mean, the afternoon tea with different assortments day by day, all different. But now you just get the one.
Obviously, a lot of things have gone mechanised now. So when I first came here, everything was manual, everything was pulled around by hand. There was no mechanical trucks like there is now, electric trucks, and no pallets like we got now, where everything's palletised and it goes away on an electric truck. Everything was man-handled.
I suppose the next 100 years or two time when we go on and people come do it, people see the film that you are doing now, they may say, well, oh, those people was working very hard, or things were different, you know, but as things change all the while and go along, it keeps changing.
And of course the biggest change we really saw was the actual demolition of all the company houses around the site here and the rebuilding of the new warehouse. What we felt then was the start of better things.
I honestly believe that there are very grave difficulties in the future for having a major biscuit plant operating within 1 mile of the city and Tower Bridge. All the other manufacturers had left the area over the years. We were the last substantial employer left. Now, they all can't be wrong.
Myself now, 47 years, I was obviously hoping to get into me 50 years to beat my father at it, but I shan't see the 50 years now. In the old 1906 film, he was a van boy on those lorries, and I always used to remember when he used to come round to where we used to live in Haydock Road, that he used to come round with his lorry while he had a cup of tea. I don't know whether this is official or not, but he used to come down with a cup of tea and all the empty tins used to be on the cage.
To us old ones who treasured the factory, it is hard. And when you see all this machinery moving out, that's hurtful, because we worked so hard to help keep it going. And now, well...
I mean, when you worked all these years, I mean, you spend 3/4 of your time at work, really. We will miss it.
I think it's a shame, having been here all these years, that it now has to close. My own personal view is that it could have been made viable, it could have been kept open.
No, I don't think so. It's like a rundown business, isn't it? I think that, you know, a thing has got to be really big or it can't work.
Well, it's just one of those things, you've got to accept changes in life. So I think really I could say with no regrets, I have enjoyed my 26 years service with the firm, both Nabisco and Peak Freans.
I couldn't, in all honesty, go and work for another factory. That's how I feel about it. Regardless of what position they offered, I just couldn't at all. There you go.